has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to Bill C-252, legislation that seeks to amend the Food and Drugs Act, and more specifically, seeks to impose an advertising ban on unhealthy food and beverage products to youth under the age of 13. This bill is substantively similar to Bill S-228, introduced in the 42nd Parliament, which I similarly opposed. The objective of the bill is a laudable one. After all, obesity is a real problem in Canada amongst young people. Recent data indicates that approximately 30% of children and youth between the ages of 5 and 17 are obese. That's not good. That's a problem, and it is one that we must work towards addressing. The issue with the bill is not its laudable objective, but rather that it seeks a simplistic solution to a complex problem, that of childhood obesity, for which there are many underlying factors. It is truly a multi-dimensional challenge. The idea proposed in the bill, Mr. Speaker, is not a new one. Similar advertising bans have been implemented in other jurisdictions, including in the province of Quebec. In the case of Quebec, the law has been on the books for more than 40 years. Unfortunately, the data from jurisdictions that have such bans in place demonstrate that the intended purpose of reducing childhood obesity has not borne out. In the province of Quebec, 40 years on the books, what has happened in the last 40 years? Childhood obesity has gone up, not down. If it worked, you would expect to see it go down, but that has not happened. Looking at other jurisdictions within Canada, we see that these types of bans have not had their intended impact, having regard for a province like Quebec, which has a ban, and provinces like Alberta that do not. For example, the Canadian Community Health Survey indicates that my province of Alberta has a similar level of childhood obesity as that of the province of Quebec. So, Mr. Speaker, given that this has been tried and tested in other jurisdictions and has not worked, it's difficult to see how implementing this nationally will suddenly work. I don't believe it will. The evidence isn't there, and on that basis alone, this bill merits to be defeated. But let me stress that this is not just a bill with a laudable objective, with a solution that hasn't worked, but maybe, hopefully, it will work, so let's give it a try. No, Mr. Speaker, this bill, if passed, will have very serious repercussions to key sectors of the economy, reducing GDP, costing jobs, and ironically, adversely impacting youth amateur sport. With respect to some of the economic concerns of this bill has the potential to have major ramifications when it comes to food and beverage advertising writ large. And that is as a result of vague language in the bill. More specifically, the bill would seek to ban advertising directed primarily at persons under the age of 13. Advertising directed primarily at. What does directed primarily at mean? The bill doesn't specify. It doesn't provide any clarity. Instead, it is left to regulators at Health Canada to fill in the blanks. That simply is not good enough. It's not good enough that we would be voting on a bill that seeks to impose an advertising ban without understanding exactly what it is that we are banning. When the previous iteration of this bill, namely S-228, was studied, key stakeholders, including the Retail Council of Canada and Restaurants Canada, expressed concern that this bill could result in a sweeping ban of all food and beverage advertising, adult and child-directed alike. This concern was informed by indications that Health Canada would be taking a broad view in terms of interpreting what constitutes child-directed marketing. Madam Speaker, to mitigate against unintended consequences, these and other stakeholders put forward recommendations to tighten up the language, to incorporate more precise language into the bill. That precise language recommended by key stakeholders remains absent from this version of the bill, and so the very issue that was raised with respect to S-228 remains a problem with respect to Bill C-252. With respect to amateur sport, this bill could prevent, or at the very least diminish, corporate partnership and sponsorship of youth amateur sport. Sponsorship such as Timbits Hockey and Timbits Soccer. McDonald's Canada sponsors more than 50,000 kids to play hockey. That could be shut down as a result of this bill, having regard for the broad definition of advertisement under the Food and Drugs Act, coupled with the vague language in the bill. Indeed, when Bill S-228 was studied, Hockey Canada and Canada Soccer expressed real concern that millions of sponsorship dollars for their organizations would dry up. And so, Madam Speaker, it is a bit ironic that a bill that seeks to reduce childhood obesity would have the effect of taking away programs and opportunities for young people to participate in amateur sport, which is a tried, tested, and proven way to stay healthy and avoid obesity, in contrast to this bill, which is a tried, tested, and failed way to reduce childhood obesity. And so, Madam Speaker, in closing, let me say that Bill C-252 is just another liberal government knows best bill. It puts power in the hands of regulators instead of putting power in the hands of parents. We on this side of the House as Conservatives trust parents, not bureaucrats, to make the best decisions, including health decisions for the children, for their children. And so, for that and the reasons that I've outlined, I will be opposing this bill.
Hear, hear. Please, du débat.